Bars are supposed to be places where people unwind, right? But some customers treat bartenders like complaint hotlines for the laws of physics, cosmic energy, and even the emotional state of fruit. Tonight, you're about to hear 69 of the most absurd, facepalm complaints bartenders have actually had to endure. Stories so ridiculous, they'll make you wonder if alcohol makes people weird, or if weird people just gravitate to bars. 1. Imagine this. A guy who looks like he takes his whiskey very seriously slides his Jack Daniels on the rocks back across the bar. He leans in conspiratorially and says, "There's a serious issue with this drink." The bartender expects the usual, wrong brand, too much ice. But the man points a stern finger at the glass and declares, "This ice, it's aggressively cold." He then argued that its excessive coldness was shocking the bourbon and ruining the flavor profile. He wasn't asking for less ice. He was demanding ice that had learned to chill out a bit. 2. There's a special kind of arrogance that only surfaces on a packed Saturday night. A man, a complete stranger, locks eyes with the bartender and snaps his fingers. "You know what I want. Get me my usual." The bartender, swamped with orders, politely explains she's never seen him before. The man scoffs in disbelief. "What kind of bartender are you? The usual is a Bud Light. Are you even qualified for this job?" He was genuinely outraged that she couldn't read his mind and magically know his incredibly generic drink order. 3. On a bustling ladies' night, a woman ordered a Long Island iced tea, a cocktail that's basically a United Nations summit of liquors in a glass. After one sip, she recoiled and slammed it on the bar. "Excuse me," she announced to everyone within earshot. "I think you're trying to get me drunk." She then accused the bartender of overpouring, demanding he remake the drink so it tasted less like a hangover and more like a proper iced tea. She essentially wanted the reputation of the drink without any of the actual ingredients. 4. Picture the scene. It's the fourth quarter of the Super Bowl. The bar is a sea of jerseys, high fives, and roaring fans. A man in a suit, looking deeply annoyed, complains to the bartender that the noise is interrupting his phone call. The bartender just shrugs, gesturing at the chaos. The man then asks with complete seriousness, "Can't you just make an announcement for everyone to be quiet for 5 minutes? It's an important call." He wanted the entire Super Bowl party to take a brief intermission for his business. 5. A woman once meticulously ordered a glass of water with no ice and a separate glass filled to the brim with ice. The bartender obliged, assuming she had her reasons. A few minutes later, she called him over, looking genuinely distressed. She held up her damp hand and complained that the condensation forming on the outside of the water glass was unacceptable and unhygienic. She was lodging a formal complaint against the laws of thermodynamics and expected the bartender to do something about it. 6. You get all types, including the self-proclaimed connoisseur who sent back his Hendrix and tonic because the ice cubes were geometrically aggressive. He claimed the sharp corners of the standard square cubes were bruising the delicate botanicals and releasing a stress-induced bitterness into the gin. He then requested a new drink, but only if the bartender could provide ice that was spherically harmonious and emotionally neutral. It was less of a drink order and more of a hostage negotiation. 7. A bartender once watched a woman recoil from a perfectly good margarita as if it were poison. Her issue? The lime wedge. Not an allergy to citrus, but a self-diagnosed allergy to the color green itself. She claimed its vibrational frequency was clashing with her aura and making her nauseous. She then demanded he swap it for a lemon wedge, explaining that yellow is a much more spiritually digestible color. She was treating her cocktail choice like a session with a crystal healer. 8. The designated driver is usually a hero, but not this one. After proudly ordering an O'Doul's non-alcoholic beer, a man spent the next hour getting progressively louder. He eventually stumbled back to the bar, slurring his words, and furiously accused the bartender of trying to get him a DUI by spiking his drink. He refused to believe the bottle was non-alcoholic, claiming he knew his tolerance and was clearly 3 sheets to the wind. His own mind had gotten him drunk on nothing. 9. A couple of frat bros who looked like they'd be more at home with a funnel of cheap beer decided to try something sophisticated: mojitos. One of them took a sip, made a face, and waved the bartender over. "Dude," he said, pointing into his glass with genuine disgust, "what's all this salad doing in my drink?" He wasn't joking. He was truly offended by the presence of muddled mint leaves in his mint-based cocktail and asked if they could strain out all the green stuff. 10. During a particularly painful karaoke night, a man dramatically gesturing while singing a Bon Jovi song sloshed half his beer onto the floor. He immediately marched to the bar, slammed his glass down, and demanded a free one. The bartender asked what happened. The man pointed towards the ceiling with utter conviction and said, "The gravity in this corner is way too aggressive. It's a safety hazard." He wasn't blaming the floor or another person. He was filing a formal complaint against one of the fundamental forces of the universe. 11. During a painfully slow Tuesday trivia night, a woman complained that the questions were unfair. The bartender assumed she meant they were too hard, but her reasoning was far more philosophical. She argued, with the conviction of a seasoned lawyer, that the trivia was inherently biased against people who don't know the answers. She wasn't asking for easier questions. She was lodging a formal complaint against the very concept of knowledge-based competition itself. 12. A young woman, who was clearly documenting her entire existence for social media, ordered the most colorful cocktail on the menu. After taking about 50 photos of it from various angles, she flagged the bartender down with a look of deep disappointment. The drink tasted fine, but she complained that the bar's warm, ambient lighting was clashing with her Instagram feed's cool-toned aesthetic. She then asked if he could just change the light bulbs in her section of the bar. 13. You simply can't make this stuff up. A man who acted like a tequila aficionado ordered a shot of high-end Don Julio, 1942. He swirled it, sniffed it, took a tiny sip, and then pushed it back with disgust. "This is fake," he announced loudly. The bartender, knowing it was from a freshly opened bottle, asked why he thought so. The man replied, completely serious, "Because real tequila has a worm in it. Everyone knows that." He was about to school the bartender based on a myth usually associated with cheap mezcal. 14. A guy ordered a perfectly poured Guinness, complete with a beautiful creamy head. He stared at it for a solid minute before calling the bartender over. He pointed at the foam and said, "I'm not paying for air." The bartender tried to explain that the head is a crucial part of the Guinness experience. The man was not having it. "I ordered a full pint of beer, not 3/4 of a beer and 1/4 of a bubble bath. Scrape it off." 15. A bachelorette party, the natural enemy of bar staff sanity, was doing fireball shots. The bride-to-be, after downing hers, complained that the experience was lacking celebratory sparkle. She insisted that for the price they were paying, the bartender should have had the foresight to add edible glitter to the cinnamon whiskey. She was genuinely upset that her shot of cheap-flavored liquor wasn't as festive and magical as her Pinterest board had led her to believe it should be. 16. A woman ordered a hot toddy on a chilly evening, then sent it back. The bartender assumed it was too cold, but she shook her head. "The temperature is fine," she explained patiently, "but it's just emotionally cold." She claimed the drink was lacking a comforting soul and accused the bartender of making it without sufficient love or positive intention. She wanted him to remake it, but this time with more feeling. 17. A customer once complained that the polished oak bar top was too reflective. He claimed that every time he looked down to take a sip of his Coors Light, he would catch his own reflection staring back at him, and it was making him uncomfortably self-aware. He then asked the bartender if there was anything he could do to dull the finish in his immediate area, so he could drink without having an existential crisis. 18. Never underestimate the customer's ability to blame the bar for everything. One man ordered a glass of red wine, let it sit for 10 minutes while absorbed in his phone, and then complained it didn't taste right. His diagnosis? The bar's air conditioning system was circulating overly aggressive oxygen molecules that were causing his wine to age at a hyper-accelerated rate. He wasn't blaming the wine, he was blaming the air for being a bully. 19. A man who had clearly just come from the gym ordered a vodka soda and then began grilling the bartender. Is this vodka gluten-free? Is the club soda filtered? Does the lime have pesticides on it? After getting satisfactory answers, he took a sip and complained. This has way too many calories. The bartender was speechless. The drink, which is famously one of the lowest calorie options, contained maybe 100 calories total. The man was complaining about the caloric content of the alcohol he had willingly ordered. 20. After drinking half a gin and tonic, a customer flagged the bartender down, looking confused. "I'm sorry," he said, "but I think you gave me the wrong drink. I ordered a vodka soda." The bartender, who distinctly remembered the man saying gin and tonic, was about to say so. But the man cut him off, explaining, "Look, my mouth may have said the words gin and tonic, but my brain was thinking vodka soda. You should have been able to tell the difference." 21. A self-proclaimed audiophile once complained that the bar's classic rock playlist was fundamentally flawed. He flagged the bartender down mid-song, pointing towards a speaker, and claimed with absolute certainty that the bar's sound system was playing Hotel California in the wrong key. Not a bad cover band, the actual recording by the Eagles. He insisted their audio setup was somehow transposing the iconic track, offending his perfect pitch and ruining his entire drinking experience. 22. A woman ordered a dirty martini and then stared into it with growing horror. The bartender, concerned, asked if it was made correctly. "The drink is fine," she whispered, "but the olive, it's staring at me." She claimed the pimento-stuffed olive had a judgmental aura and was making her feel deeply insecure about her life choices. She requested a new martini, but this time, could he please make sure the olive was facing the other way? 23. After ordering a cocktail that required shaking, a customer watched the bartender's every move with a critical eye. Once the drink was served, he took a sip and shook his head sadly. "I knew it," he sighed. "You shook it with too much aggression." He argued that the bartender's negative energy had been transferred into the shaker, bruising the spirit's feelings and creating a palpably tense flavor profile. He wanted it remade, but with a more zen-like, gentle shaking technique. 24. A customer confidently ordered a Virgin Jack and Coke. The bartender, without missing a beat, poured a simple glass of Coca-Cola. The man looked at the drink, then back at the bartender, his face a mask of betrayal. "Where's the Jack?" he demanded. The bartender explained that virgin means without alcohol. The man was furious. "I didn't ask for a Virgin Coke," he snapped. "I wanted a Virgin Jack Daniels, the non-alcoholic one." He was 100% convinced a non-alcoholic version of Tennessee whiskey existed. 25. On a hot day, a woman was thrilled to receive her beer in a perfectly frosted mug. 2 minutes later, she complained that the mug was too effective. She argued that the frozen glass was leaching the coldness out of the beer at an accelerated rate, creating a thermal imbalance that was shocking her palate. She wanted the beer transferred to a room temperature glass to allow it to warm up more naturally and gracefully. 26. A man sitting at the bar with a Budweiser in hand kept glancing nervously at a glowing Miller Lite sign on the opposite wall. Finally, he called the bartender over. "I have a problem," he said. "That sign. Its light is interfering with my beer." He claimed the photons emanating from the competitor's sign were contaminating his Budweiser on a molecular level, making it taste vaguely of Miller Lite. He asked if the bartender could just unplug it for a while. 27. One regular suddenly complained about the person sitting 2 stools down from her, even though they hadn't spoken a word. Her complaint? The other patron had a very disruptive and jagged aura that was making her Chardonnay go flat. She insisted she could feel his negative energy traveling down the bar top, vibrating through her glass, and systematically destroying the carbonation in her wine. It was a new age drive-by drinking complaint. 28. A customer spent an eternity staring at the cocktail menu, his brow furrowed in concentration. Finally, he slammed it down in frustration. "I can't order from this," he declared. The bartender asked what the issue was. "The font," the man explained. "It's a serif font, which is very assertive and condescending. It makes all the drink descriptions sound sarcastic, and now I don't trust any of them." He was lodging a formal complaint against typography. 29. On a dimly lit atmospheric evening, a patron complained that the bar's ambiance was a health hazard. She argued that the mood lighting was medically irresponsible because it prevented her skin from absorbing the necessary amount of vitamin D. She then asked, with a completely straight face, if the bar had a full-spectrum therapy lamp they could bring to her table so she could enjoy her cocktail without risking a nutrient deficiency. 30. A guy who looked like he'd just finished a CrossFit session ordered a shot of whiskey. He held it up to the light, swirled it, and then complained it was structurally unsound. The bartender, confused, asked him to clarify. "It's too liquidy," the man stated. "It lacks viscosity." He was genuinely disappointed that the distilled spirit didn't have the thick, syrupy consistency of a protein shake and accused the bar of watering it down with more liquid. 31. A customer ordered a spicy Bloody Mary at brunch, took one sip, and immediately sent it back. His complaint was simple, yet profound. "This drink tastes too much like breakfast," he announced, as if this were a shocking revelation. He was offended that the iconic brunch cocktail, made of tomato juice, vodka, and various spices, tasted exactly like the thing it was famous for being. He wanted something that tasted less like itself. 32. A semi-regular customer tried to haggle the price of his beer. His argument was not based on a happy hour special, but on economics of the future. He claimed that since he fully intended to become a very loyal customer and would spend thousands of dollars there over the next decade, he should be entitled to a loyalty discount that started immediately on his very first beer of the night. He was complaining about paying full price based on his own unproven predictions. 33. A woman reviewing her final bill was visibly shocked. She called the bartender over and pointed to the sales tax line item. "I'm not paying this," she stated firmly. Why? Because she was deeply disappointed with the recent performance of our city council, and therefore felt she was morally exempt from contributing to their salaries. She was attempting to stage a one-woman tax protest, using her partially consumed margarita as the catalyst for revolution. 34. A tourist trying to sound worldly ordered a Moscow Mule. When the bartender presented the classic copper mug with vodka, ginger beer, and lime, the man looked deeply offended. "This isn't from Moscow," he stated, pointing at the mug. The bartender agreed, "And I see no evidence of a mule." He then launched into a tirade about false advertising, demanding to know why the bar was appropriating Russian agricultural logistics for a simple cocktail. He was genuinely angry the drink wasn't an authentic, mule-delivered beverage from Russia. 35. There's particular, and then there's this. A man ordered a simple gin and tonic, then held the glass up to his ear like a seashell. After a moment of intense listening, he slid it back across the bar. "I can't drink this," he said with a pained expression. "The bubbles are too loud." He claimed the aggressive fizzing was giving him a headache and asked if the bartender could somehow make him a new one with quieter, more considerate carbonation. 36. A woman ordering a Manhattan watched the bartender stir it with the focus of a hawk. Once served, she took a single sip and shook her head. "You stirred it counterclockwise," she announced. The bartender was baffled. "Yes," he replied. "It's bad luck," she explained. My grandmother always said you stir away negativity clockwise. You've just locked all the bad vibes into my bourbon. She demanded a new, spiritually correct drink, stirred in the proper, lucky direction. 37. One patron refused the QR code menu like it was radioactive. He complained that scanning a code to read cocktails was digitally leaching flavor from the room and draining battery from his soul. He demanded a paper menu because ink tastes analog, and insisted the bartender print a fresh copy so the descriptions wouldn't be pixelated. When handed a laminated list, he pushed it back, horrified. Lamination, he said, seals in office air, which adds a plasticky note to rye. He wanted raw, unlaminated paper, preferably recycled from a poetry zine, so the drinks would read warmer. He ended by warning other guests that Wi-Fi near gin causes juniper lag. The trio at the end of the bar applauded the TED Talk. 38. A man ordered a complicated craft cocktail. The 2 minutes it took to make were apparently too much for him. When the drink arrived, he sighed and said, "It's too late." The bartender was confused. "I'm sorry?" The man explained, "I'm not the same person I was when I ordered this. I've aged. I've had new thoughts. My palate has evolved." He was complaining that the passage of time had created a disconnect between the man who ordered the drink and the man who was about to consume it. 39. A group was ordering White Claws, and one woman complained that hers didn't taste white enough. The bartender, unsure how to even process that, asked, "You mean the black cherry flavor isn't strong enough?" "No," she insisted. "The overall flavor profile lacks the essence of the color white. It tastes more like a beige or maybe a light gray. It's very misleading." She was complaining that a beverage's abstract name didn't have a corresponding synesthetic taste. 40. A man furiously typing on his laptop called the bartender over and complained that the bar's free Wi-Fi was ruining his beer. His theory was that the wireless signal was passing through the liquid and digitally degrading the flavor. He claimed his IPA tasted pixelated and had lost its analog warmth. He then asked if the bartender could please turn off the router for a few minutes so he could finish his uncontaminated drink in peace. 41. Some things get lost in translation. A tourist from a landlocked country ordered a scotch on the rocks. When the bartender served it in a glass with ice cubes, the man became irate. He shouted that he didn't want his expensive whiskey watered down with frozen tap water. He thought "on the rocks" was a poetic serving suggestion, and he genuinely expected the glass to be physically placed upon a smooth, aesthetically pleasing riverstone. 42. A man in a somber suit ordered a Manhattan after a clearly difficult day. When it arrived with a bright red maraschino cherry, he recoiled. He called the bartender over and whispered, "I can't have this. That cherry, it's just too happy." He claimed its obnoxious cheerfulness was mocking his foul mood. He then asked, in all seriousness, if the bar had a more emotionally appropriate garnish, perhaps an olive or a very sad-looking lemon twist. 43. It was Tiki Tuesday, and one bartender was wearing a loud Hawaiian shirt. A customer complained that the shirt was directly affecting the taste of his vodka soda. He argued that the aggressive color palette and chaotic floral pattern of the bartender's shirt were visually shouting at his taste buds, causing his very neutral drink to taste like static. He asked if the bartender could stand further away while he finished his beverage. 44. During the final minutes of a close NFL game, a fan was on the edge of his seat. The bartender delivered his fresh beer right as the quarterback threw a game-losing interception. The man slammed his fist on the table and blamed the bartender. His logic? The sudden appearance of the beer in the quarterback's peripheral vision on the giant screen must have distracted him, causing the bad throw. He was convinced the bartender had personally cost his team the game. 45. A customer complained that his beer glass was too clean and transparent. He argued that being able to see the distorted images of the bar and other people through the amber liquid was breaking the fourth wall of his drinking experience. It was, he insisted, profoundly distracting. He then asked if the bar had any frosted or opaque mugs so he could focus entirely on the beer itself, without the outside world intruding on his beverage. 46. A guy tried to pay for his $6 Pabst Blue Ribbon with a $1 scratch-off lottery ticket. When the bartender refused, the man complained about his lack of vision. "This ticket isn't $1, he argued passionately. "It's a potential $50,000. You should accept it and just give me $49,994 in change." He was complaining that the bar didn't have a business model based on theoretical future winnings. 47. A woman ordered a screwdriver and then complained that it was poorly named. She wasn't upset about the taste. As an architect, she was offended on a conceptual level. She explained that a screwdriver is a tool for precision and control, while her drink was a chaotic, brutish mixture of two liquids. She suggested the bar rename it to something more accurate, like a blunt instrument or a citrus collision. 48. A man was sitting alone, nursing a Samuel Adams while a live jazz trio was playing in the corner. He called the bartender over, looking deeply troubled. "You need to tell them to stop," he said, pointing at the band. The bartender asked if they were too loud. "No," the man replied. "They're improvising. All those spontaneous, unpredictable notes are making my beer nervous. It's a very structured, predictable lager, and all this chaos is making it anxious." 49. Few things are as predictable as this. A young couple, clearly on their first real vacation, nervously ordered 2 sex-on-the-beach cocktails. When the colorful drinks arrived, the man looked around, then leaned in and whispered to the bartender, "Okay, so, where's the beach?" He wasn't joking. He genuinely believed that for $19 the drink came with a private designated beach area for them to complete the transaction. 50. In a nearly empty bar on a Wednesday afternoon, a customer complained that his bar stool was dangerously comfortable. He argued that the plush cushioning and ergonomic back support were lulling him into a state of unproductive complacency, making him lose his competitive drinking edge. He then asked if the bartender could swap it for a hard, wobbly stool that would keep him alert, tense, and focused on the task at hand. 51. A woman with an artistic flair became furious with her cocktail napkin. She accused the small paper square of plagiarism. She claimed that the unique condensation ring her glass was creating on the polished wood bar was a transient water-based masterpiece, and the coaster was blatantly stealing its design by absorbing it. She demanded the bartender remove the plagiaristic paper so she could properly appreciate her ephemeral art. 52. After watching an episode of a legal drama on his phone, a customer decided to apply his newfound knowledge. He demanded the recipe for the bar's signature old-fashioned. When the bartender politely declined, the man slammed his hand on the bar and declared the bartender was obstructing justice. He then complained that this refusal to share proprietary information was a clear case of being in contempt of the court of his personal curiosity. 53. A woman who radiated, "I just left a hot yoga class," energy sent back her gin and cucumber cocktail. She claimed she could taste the bartender's unbalanced root chakra in the drink. She insisted that his spiritual turmoil had been transferred through his hands into the gin and was now misaligning her chi with every sip. She requested he remake it, but only after he took a moment to meditate and center his energies. 54. Some complaints are so bizarre they border on genius. A man sent back his Tito's vodka soda because he could taste the potato's life story. He claimed, with the utmost seriousness, that he could sense the existential despair of the potato it was made from, that it had lived a stressful, unfulfilling life in an overcrowded field. He then asked if the bar carried any vodkas made from happier, more emotionally stable potatoes. 55. A customer complained about the bartender's draft pouring technique. He didn't say the beer was flat or had too much head. He claimed the arc of the pour was too high and aggressive. This, he argued, was hyper-aerating the beer with the bar's latent negative energy, causing it to taste of disappointment and poor financial planning. He requested a new pint, poured with a much gentler, lower, more emotionally positive trajectory. 56. A woman tried to get a refund for a margarita she had already finished. Her reasoning was simple. She was lodging a preemptive complaint. She anticipated having a nasty hangover the next morning and argued that since the bar was the direct cause of her impending future suffering, they were financially liable. She wanted to be compensated for her future headache right now, before it had even started. 57. A craft beer enthusiast ordered a Blue Moon, which is traditionally served with an orange slice. He immediately plucked the orange off the rim and handed it back. "Get this corporate propaganda away from my beer," he sneered. He wasn't complaining about the taste of citrus. He was complaining about the idea of the garnish, claiming it was a marketing gimmick designed to mask the beer's true character, and he refused to be a pawn in their citrus-based agenda. 58. It's one thing to want your wine at the right temperature. It's another to invent a new scale of measurement. A man sent back his Pinot Grigio, stating it was too cold. The bartender offered to let it sit for a moment. No, the man said. I need you to pour a new one. Chill it to the precise temperature of a moderately disappointed sigh. The bartender just stared, trying to figure out how to translate an emotion into degrees Celsius. 59. The ultimate meta complaint. A customer ordered a shot and a beer, which the bartender served immediately. After finishing both, the man complained that the service was flawless and far too efficient. He argued that the lack of any wait or struggle had robbed him of the character-building experience of anticipation and mild inconvenience. He was genuinely upset that everything had gone perfectly, leaving him with nothing to complain about. 60. A man with a very serious expression took a slow sip of his bourbon on the rocks. He closed his eyes, concentrating, then opened them and flagged the bartender down. "I have a sonic complaint," he announced. "The ice. When it cracks, the pitch is all wrong. It's a C-sharp, which is a very aggressive, unsettling frequency. It's clashing with the caramel notes of the whiskey. Do you have any ice that cracks in a more melodious G-flat?" 61. A lifer ordered his sacred Jack and Coke, took one heroic pull, then scowled like he'd been betrayed by a childhood friend. He slid it back and complained, "The cola is too alive." Not sweet, alive. The bubbles, he said, were volatile agents that kept activating the whiskey's sharper edges, turning each sip into carbonic pepper spray. He demanded a remake with decarbonated, ideologically neutral cola, ideally poured the day before, then rested like a steak. Also, the Coke logo on the napkin was marketing noise interfering with his palate. So could the bartender rotate the glass so the brand faced the wall? He finally approved and asked for 2% more Jack, but emotionally rounder. 62. A man at the jukebox loaded up 5 songs, then, mid-chorus, flagged the bartender with courtroom gravitas. He wasn't angry about volume, he was furious about astrology. The playlist, he said, was hostile to Scorpios, and the current track's key change provoked a Mars in retrograde response that made his lager taste offensive. He demanded the bartender skip anything in a minor because it slanders my rising sign, and comp his round for astrological damages. When told the skip button costs a credit, he cited cosmic consumer rights, insisting bars must provide a zodiac-safe listening environment. He finished his beer, glared at the speakers, and warned the room that synth bass and Mercury weeks can flatten head retention. Someone actually wrote that down. 63. A woman ordered a skinny margarita, specifying fresh lime juice and no agave. The bartender made it perfectly. She took a sip, then complained that it was dangerously sweet. The bartender reminded her it contained only tequila and lime juice. "Exactly," she snapped. This lime is a sugar bomb. I can feel the carbs. Don't you have any diet limes? Or limes that have been to the gym? This is a blatant disregard for my keto lifestyle. 64. An aspiring influencer meticulously curating her brand complained that her cosmopolitan cocktail clashed with her personal aesthetic. She explained to the bartender that her online persona was dark academia with a hint of cottagecore, and the drink's frivolous pink hue and jaunty vibe were completely off-brand. She asked if he could create a cocktail that was more intellectually rigorous and had a color palette that suggested a well-read, slightly melancholic vibe. 65. A man who had been a regular at a bar called the Laughing Hyena for 5 years suddenly lodged a formal complaint with the manager. He claimed that after years of reflection, he had come to realize the bar's name was deeply offensive and problematic. Not to him, but to actual hyenas. He argued it promoted a harmful stereotype that hyenas were always laughing and never taken seriously, and that the bar should change its name out of respect for the animal kingdom. 66. A customer who came in about twice a year, usually during different seasons, complained that the bartender didn't remember his seasonal usual. The bartender, having served thousands of people since his last visit, politely asked for a reminder. "You should know," the man insisted. "In the winter, I get the hot toddy. In the spring, it's the gin fizz. And last summer, I was on a big Aperol spritz kick. You not remembering that feels incredibly impersonal." 67. A woman complained that the standard-issue plastic straw provided with her drink was a facial muscle hazard. She argued that the diameter of the straw offered too much suction resistance, forcing her to engage her facial muscles in a way that would undoubtedly lead to premature perioral wrinkles. She then demanded a wider, low-resistance straw that would allow her to drink in a manner that was less physically taxing on her face. 68. A history buff ordered a sidecar cocktail. After taking a sip, he sent it back with a look of moral anguish. He complained that he had just remembered the cocktail was invented around the time of World War I, and that its jaunty name and celebratory nature felt like a gross trivialization of a major global conflict. He claimed he could taste the historical insensitivity, and that drinking it made him feel personally complicit. 69. A man marched up, dead serious. "Water. Neat." The bartender poured a cold glass from the tap. The man shook his head like a disappointed sommelier. "No ice, no chill. Room temperature. In a heavy rocks glass with proper hand feel. Present it, don't plop it." He requested a quiet pour, a brief pause to let the terroir of the municipal supply open up, and a respectful nod before service. Also, could the bartender avoid touching the rim? Finger oils disrupt the finish, and maybe add a tiny coaster for cadence, not absorption. He swirled the water, inhaled nothing, and finally approved. Then he asked if they had a single-source vintage from a confident faucet. The bar stared. He tipped 20 cents for the ceremony. And there it is, 69 complaints so absurd they could only have been brewed in a bar. But here's the real question. Who's worse? The people who complain about gravity, aura energy, and diet limes, or the bartenders who somehow keep a straight face while serving them? I want you to take sides in the comments. Team customers are insane, or team bartenders deserve hazard pay. Smash that like button if you laughed, and subscribe. Because trust me, the next list will be even dumber than this one.